Marvel has always been at its best when it's written its characters to have heart and told compelling stories. I remember watching The Winter Soldier in the cinema and it striking a chord with me. As I left, I remember thinking it was one of the best films I had ever seen. That might seem strange, but the characters shown in that film was what made me really fall in love with the MCU. Up until that point, I very casually watched Marvel films. In fact, I didn't see the Avengers for a full year after its release. But something about The Winter Soldier made me desperate to see more of these characters, because despite the fact that they were gods and superhumans, underneath all that, the characters still felt very real. Unfortunately, it's kind of lost its way a bit, and Phase 4 for Marvel and the MCU has kind of sucked overall. A quick YouTube search will show you a ton of video essays about why this is the case, down to poor storytelling, the lack of character development, and in my opinion, the lack of an Avengers movie that ties it all together. But let's not pretend that it's all terrible. In fact, I think there were some great moments. No Way Home is still one of my favourite films, and Shang-Chi was unexpectedly amazing, and Black Panther had the difficulty of telling a story that paid respect to the late Chadwick Boseman whilst moving the franchise forward. And whilst I don't think it's a perfect film, it does have a perfect scene that makes the film infinitely better. And of course, I'm talking about the scene with Killmonger. For some backstory, at this point in the film, Namor has attacked Wakanda and Shuri's mother Ramonda is dead. Namor threatens to be back to destroy the rest of them unless Shuri hands over Riri Williams. Shuri is unsure how to respond as she's lost both her mother and her brother and is struggling with her grief. She's now responsible for the safety of her people and feels all is lost unless she is able to finish the synthetic herb she was attempting to create to save T'Challa. She successfully creates the herb, and this is where the scene really starts. As the audience, this is supposed to be a heroic moment. She's found the missing piece she needed and has overcome her obstacle, the thing that stopped her from saving someone she loved in the past, and now has the strength to become the Black Panther and save her people. As she takes the herb, we expected to see her mother, for her to gain some wisdom and advice, the same as we did in the original Black Panther where T'Challa sees his father. As she drinks the herb, she's transported to the ancestral plane, to somewhere we're familiar with, the throne room of the palace, and yet we're unable to see who's sitting on the throne. As Shuri walks around the room looking for her mother, Killmonger comes into view, and we see the look of horror on Shuri's face. As the scene plays out, Killmonger tells Shuri that she chose him, that she, like him, was seeking the power of the Black Panther to avenge the loss of those closest to them. This tiny bit of context changes the entire dynamic of the film going forward. We assume that the film would be Shuri overcoming her grief, accepting the loss of her brother and her mother, and becoming the hero we expect. And yet here is Killmonger telling her that her motives are like his, that she, like him, should avenge those she's lost and give in to the anger. As Shuri tells him she is nothing like him, we see the flames crawl up the wall, and it's a perfect piece of visual imagery. We see her anger grow, and as it grows, the flames grow. We see what's been bubbling inside Shuri all this time, her anger and her grief, and then Killmonger says this.
Are you gonna be noble like your brother, or take care of business like me?
But what does that line really tell us? Well, if we track back a bit to when the MCU was all the hype and could do no wrong, we are first introduced to T'Challa in Civil War, and like how Shuri loses her mother in Wakanda Forever, T'Challa loses his father in this film, and in response to that action, he says this.
Don't bother Miss Romanoff. I'll kill him myself.
Like Shuri, he is full of vengeance, rage, grief and loss. He is willing to destroy everything to avenge his father, even exposing his nation and its technology to get it done. We see throughout Civil War how relentless T'Challa is in his pursuit, at first attempting to kill Bucky himself, then teaming up with Iron Man, and finally following him to Serbia where Cap and Bucky try to destroy Zemo. In fact, it's only upon seeing Iron Man attacking his friends and attempting to kill Bucky in pursuit of his own vengeance does T'Challa see what being consumed by anger has done to those around him, and he stops himself.
Vengeance has consumed you. It's consuming them. I'm done letting it consume me.
And so when Killmonger asks Shuri if she's going to be honourable like T'Challa or take care of business like him, we don't get to see her answer. The next thing we see is her waking up, and as the audience we're left wondering how is she going to be for the rest of the movie. We wonder if she will get her heroic moment, learn from her mistakes or take her vengeance and kill Namor. This question lingers and is then reinforced when she shows up in the gold and silver panther suit. It symbolises the internal struggle she's going through to either let her vengeance go or let it consume her like Killmonger did. I think this one scene in Phase 4 is perfect because of how it changes our perception of Shuri as a character. In previous films, she's always been the nerdy tech head with a heart of gold, who obviously loves her family, and yet we see that pain and emotion exposed for the first time, and we doubt her for just a second. We don't know what she's going to do, and as such, we wonder and fear that she'll be consumed by that vengeance and lose her heroic nature. It's a wonderful piece of character storytelling and development that's missing from a lot of other projects in Phase 4. In a world where we're told exactly what's happening in each scene and why it's relevant, this one scene is brave enough to show something wonderful, and it changes the entire direction of the film. It's that little bit of darkness that outside of No Way Home has honestly been missing from the MCU since Endgame. I think this scene is reminiscent of what made Marvel so great in Phases 1, 2 and 3. The characters in this films had moments to grow, and their actions felt human to us. We understood Tony's journey from young playboy who felt he could take on the world by himself to family man who was desperate to protect and keep safe the people he loved. Likewise, we emphasized with Steve feeling alone and desperate to cling on to something familiar from his past, whilst trying to move forward in his life. And whilst most of us aren't billionaires with Iron Man suits or have been transported 80 years into the future, most of us at some point feel that time has gone too quick and want to hold on to something familiar or want to protect our families and loved ones. And that's what makes Killmonger's scene in Wakanda Forever so good. Many of us have or will lose someone we love to an incurable disease or through some tragedy, and in those moments we feel lost, like the world has taken something from us and we want to fight. We're desperate to have back that person because the thought of them being gone forever hurts. And so confronted with a choice, do we let our anger and grief go and move forward in life, or do we let it consume us and hold us back forever?